So we've got a really great mix of folks here. And I think we're going to kick this off. So real quick introduction, just give me again a thumbs up for some of you guys. You can see my screen, you could hear me well, we're all set. Amazing. So I'm Fay, and I'm the founder of Folio, like we had said, which is basically taking this concept and what we discovered, and I'll tell you a little bit of the story about this, is all my years in marketing, I've hired freelancers, agencies, contractors. And as someone that has hired a lot in that space, I always wondered, why on earth is it such a complicated process to get a portfolio from a freelancer or a proposal from a freelancer that actually is catered to me and the things that I need and what I'm looking for? I can't tell you one of the most recent, I was a head of marketing in a venture capital firm, and I was looking, I'll tell you a very practical story. I was looking for someone to help me do thought leadership, blog writing in the crypto space. Now, I had gotten references from other VCs, other venture capitalists. I had listed of warm leads, like warm people that wanted that said, I can do this for you. And even though I had known them and gotten recommendations for them, I still needed to see their samples of work, because I wasn't about to hire somebody to do something for the VC without seeing some of their samples of work. And I had gotten some great names. And then when it came turn to being like, okay, great, awesome, love, your CV or your resume, checked you out on LinkedIn, can you send me some samples of work? It took almost 3 days for these freelancers to come and find things that could be relevant for me. And I was wondering, why does it take it so much? Because it was a back and forth. One guy sent me his website, which had a bunch of articles on real estate. And he's like, oh yeah, I do remember I did a few things about thought leadership in the crypto space. Another person sent me to a Google Drive folder that had a bunch of articles that they had done. Another person sent me to a PDF that had a bunch of screenshots of work they'd done. And I had wondered, why is it so complicated for them to just send me something that says, Fay is looking for somebody that does thought leadership about crypto. If I know I've done it, why is it not easy to send me something that's focused on me as a hiring person? And actually answers that need that I have. And as I dug, what I realized was that it's not as easy. It's not as easy as I had assumed it would be for freelancers or agencies or contractors to keep track of all the things they're doing, to make sure that they have samples of work to share, to build a website, to figure out how to build it into a portfolio, to customize that portfolio always, and to make sure that I was able to get something that both looked nice and was relevant and was something that actually could close the deal. And I wondered why that didn't exist, and why it was such a complicated process. And I decided to build it instead. So we have been working on Folio for the past about year right now, still in stealth, because what we realized, and this is just something for you guys to know, your pain that exists right now of not being able to quickly pump out a portfolio, build it, design it, is a pain that is along the ecosystem. It's not just freelancers. This is a pain that big agencies have. This is a pain that also big sales teams in service companies. It's a pain that even teams that are trying to build and pitch to massive corporations have this same problem, where all their work is all over. They don't know what they can share. They don't know how to customize it easily. There's problems with design. And if I'm a copywriter, I can't design something. I'm not a designer. Do I pay someone to design something if I need to change it every time I send it? And so that's kind of the pain that we're focusing on. And we're going to dive into a little bit about why is that such a big pain? What are we going to do about it? And how we can think about it from that perspective. I could finally actually see now the chat and the questions here. So please feel free also throughout the conversation to dump in some questions. I'm going to run through some things, and then we'll make sure we have time at the end to answer some of those general questions. But that's a little bit about me. And this is kind of like you had said, that so many freelancers are just kind of existing in the space. And as much as you want to close a deal, when it comes to you actually having to now send a proposal or a portfolio to somebody, oftentimes this is the feeling that that after we've spoken to about 200 or more freelancers and agencies, this is the feeling that people have. And again, it's not most of you. It's not just you, right? So we're talking about big managed service proposals that people are having a hard time with. We're talking about the fact that if I have multiple skills, how do I have a portfolio? I need to figure out how I want to design this. Right now, I'm also a copywriter. I also do long form content. I also do SEO. I also do, I'm also a journalist. How do I show it all? How do I show it? Do I build one website for all of that? Do I have it tagged? And that's some big conversation that I know a lot of folks are having. So you're not alone. This is a pain that a lot of folks have. And we're going to dive into this in general. we're going to divide it into kind of three primary sections. Number one, really kind of going through the importance of a portfolio, because sometimes something I've heard actually in a lot of the research that I've done is like, I'm a copywriter. I don't need a portfolio. Portfolios are for designers, right? Or portfolios are for brand specialists. Portfolios aren't necessarily for me. And so I want to kind of put it into a framework of any type of thing that any type of person that you would hire. Anytime you would want to see a collection of their work that is relevant to the job you're hiring for, that's a portfolio. If you're hiring somebody to do sales, their sales portfolio might be their CV or their resume that has some of their metrics that they've helped lift up into in their company. Right? If you're trying to hire somebody to do landscaping in your yard, their portfolio would be a collection of, let's say, all the really happy people that have hired them to do landscaping. So when I say portfolio, I just want to make sure that we're all understanding and on the same page of what do we mean by portfolio? We really mean a collection of ways to showcase your skills in an effective way to the person that's going to hire you. If you're a writer or a copywriter, your portfolio could be a collection of the URLs of all the articles you've written that are live. It could be a screenshot of some of those things if you're a designer. So I just want everyone that's here to be aware that this is relevant to you regardless of your role. And we're also going to touch a little bit on proposals, because what we've learned is oftentimes there are almost three steps that we've seen that freelancers, agencies, and even bigger, again, companies and salespeople have. They have their general portfolio that they're sending to somebody, which oftentimes could also be in form of a pitch. Then they have a general, actual, very specific proposal where they're saying, okay, here's what I can do. Here's what I've done. Now proposal, here's what I could do for you. And then you move into the contract signing phase. So when we're speaking about right now, the importance of having portfolios, we're speaking about the importance of having something to showcase your work, but even more so propose and build in and say, I can do this specific job for you because of these specific skills that I just showcased for you. And we're going to dive into that. We're going to touch again, make or break. Why is this important? What are some of the red flags? And these red flags that we collected are from countless conversations with people like me, but actually really experienced people that have spent years hiring in the either marketing space or the brand space, or that are leaders of companies and organizations that have hired a lot of freelancers or independents. So what are their red flags? And then what are the golden rules for you to kind of keep in mind and to follow and to think about when you're trying to build your next portfolio? So first off, make or break. Why on earth do we need, or should you be thinking even about portfolios or proposals? Like, why is this even a thing? Can't you just, hey, Bob knows me. I've been working with him for years. I've been a freelancer here in Ireland for, the past 30 years. They know my work. They know me. I'm well known in this space. But I can tell you from a hiring perspective, that is not the case. That is not the case, especially as more marketplaces are being open, especially as more access to different freelancers come in place, especially as the market becomes more competitive. Having a specific portfolio is so similar to Dwight, right? We're talking about when you go into any average job, you need to cater your resume or your CV to them. In the same way, when it comes to you trying to get hired, or you're trying to close a deal with a prospective prospect or with somebody, whether that's from a marketplace or anything, you need to really understand that I need to show them actual work that's relevant. And I need to do it really well, because we have more than average, more than half of the hiring managers, they say, listen, me just knowing who you worked for, how you worked any of your general CV things, that's not enough. I need to see something super practical. I need to see an output of your work, right? And I think it's something we can think about even in general, like no matter how amazing your boss, brother, uncle, friend, whatever might say, this hairdresser does a really good job, or this makeup artist does a really great job, or this interior designer does this really great job. And you'd be like, great, I understand they do a really good job. Think about yourself. You will still want to see some samples from them. You'd want to see, what did their bathroom renovation look like? What are the things look like? So that's when it comes to the importance of really the need to build a portfolio, is to show visual proof of what you have. And not only that, in order to make it actually powerful and impactful, know that there's only 15 to 20 seconds that they're spending on even looking at that portfolio. And that first 15 to 20 seconds, the biggest question that they're asking is this relevant to me? And we'll dive a little bit more into that. And then once they're deciding, okay, is this even relevant to me? Meaning, can I even engage? Do I even want to engage with this? They only spend 3 minutes on it. So meaning they're not really going and reading all of the in-depth blogs that you've written if you're a copywriter. They're not going in and looking in your graphic design down to the pixel to see if it's relevant for them or if it's done in a really good job. They just want to see who you are as a person and as a professional in that space. And when you're keeping this in mind, what you really need to think about is like, what is that first 20-second impression when someone looks at the things that I'm offering them? So that means if you're sending them a Google Drive file that has a bunch of your links inside of it, you've lost them because they're not seeing anything in 15 seconds. It takes them just 15 seconds to open that Drive file and click into it. And not only that, I can tell you from my perspective as a hiring manager for many years, if I had to compare, I'm not comparing apples to apples. Remember that. I'm not comparing your Google Drive file to someone else's Google Drive file. I'm comparing apples, your Google Drive file, to like a golden peach, okay? Which is like a beautiful portfolio or someone's customized website. So how do you make sure that when they're comparing your work, they're actually measuring you by your work and they're actually being able to access your work and see the things that you actually, that are relevant to them for that job that they're hiring for? And that's really the key focus, because this is a marketing leader here that says literally, I make my mind up based on their portfolio. When I'm choosing who I want to hire on my team, even if their CV or their resume is brilliant, if they have a bad portfolio, or it's irrelevant, and that's key word, if it's an irrelevant portfolio, it doesn't really matter. And you think about it for yourself. If there is somebody that is a fantastic, fantastic basketball player, and they have won all of the awards in basketball, and they are like on all of the elite teams, if you're trying to find and go and hire the best, someone to join your soccer team, you most likely won't go looking at the best basketball players, no matter how many awards they've won. And I want you to think about it in that framework. Unless you're pitching basketball and you're trying to close a deal with a basketball team and you're trying to get a job on a basketball team, don't pitch your soccer, don't pitch basketball stuff, right? You need to think about, who am I pitching to? Who am I building this portfolio for? Who am I trying to sell myself to in order to get that job? And so that's just a general, like, some numbers of why it matters. Now, what are some of the red flags? What are some of the things that hiring managers say, this is the total red flag? If I get a portfolio that looks like this, or if I get a proposal that looks like this, it's a no for me. So number one, obviously it's inaccessible, right? I can't tell you how many times I've been sent a Google Drive folder or someone's Dropbox or someone's something that was like, oop, request access permission. And I'm going to say, hell no. I've got 15 to 20 seconds to decide if I want to engage with this person. And they're forgetting to give me permissions for this. It's something so small, but it's so important for you to remember. So keep in mind when you are sharing your proposals or your portfolios, remember about access point. Number two, too busy. This is something that all the designers here probably will know and will be obvious to them. But if you're not in the design world, it's hard to remember that less sometimes is more. If you're a copywriter and you're sending me 20 articles and only 2 of them are relevant to me, I would have way preferred to just see those 20 articles. Those 2 articles that are relevant to me. I would have just preferred to see the things that I actually care about instead of wasting my time. Again, I only have 15 to 20 seconds to care about you, versus going in and going through all of these things and saying, okay, I need a cybersecurity or a crypto content writer. I need a crypto thought leadership content writer. Okay, they've got 2 in here somewhere. I get it. But how do I find those things? And so if there's too much noise, if there's too much content, if there's too much, honestly, even if there's too much color, your brand goes a long way. If you have a bunch of shapes and a bunch of circles and a bunch of squares, and then you have a bunch of random pictures of your work or random samples of your work interspersed, that's too busy. That's too much. My brain's in overload. Hiring managers' brains are in overload. They're not going to really get to the core of what you want to sell or what you want to pitch them. 3, no storytelling, right? So if you're just going in and you're just sending samples of work, that's not really what it is, and not enough, because sometimes it's, and this is especially important, we'll dive into the storytelling later on when it comes to the golden rules, but your job is, you need to sometimes share how you accomplish what you accomplish, because sometimes you can't even show the work, right? Sometimes you're under an NDA. Sometimes you've signed agreements. Sometimes you don't have access to the things you've done, and we'll walk through a little bit of what to do in those cases. So your story is what you can support. What was the problem? What was the solution? What did this accomplish? And again, we'll dive into that. 4, really, really hard to navigate. Someone had said, and this is funny because I'm actually showing this deck on Canva, but someone had said, I hate getting portfolios on Canva. because it's really hard for me to navigate through them. I get it. I'm trying to look at it from my phone. I don't know how to, half the people are on their phone or on their mobiles. I don't know how to access it. I don't know how to scroll through it. They have all these cool clicky links things, but then it leaves the page. So think about the user experience. For those of you, again, in the design world, you really understand the importance of UX, but think about your user experience. We're talking about people, again, that have 15 to 20 seconds, maximum 3 minutes if they really like you, like we had seen, to go through your work. Make it easy for them. And then the last two is that there's no proof, right? You're saying all these amazing things about you. You don't have customer testimonials. There's no visual proof. There's no screenshots. There's no anything. You're just saying, trust me, right? That's not something you would do. You would never go and hire a wedding photographer for your wedding if you didn't see their previous photos. That's the same thing in any sort of space, not just creatives, not just designers, not just photographers, not just videographers. You will never hire a salesperson, a fractional CMO. No one will ever hire anybody unless they see that there's proof, could include testimonials, that can include metrics, that could include numbers, many, many things. We'll dive into some of those things. How can you find those proof points? And then the last one, and this is what is really the most important, it is irrelevant. If your portfolio is irrelevant or your proposal is irrelevant, meaning it does not directly answer the specific pain that I'm looking to solve by hiring you, nobody goes to a marketplace like IndieList and just says, I want to hire somebody to do something for me, right? They always have a goal. They always understand I need to hire XYZ in order to accomplish ZYX, and here's how much I'm willing to pay more often, right? So you already have the parameters of what that person is looking for. Why are you forcing them to suffer through trying to figure out if you fit into their parameters? You already know those parameters. Build those parameters, even if it means writing out notes, they're looking for this, and build it into that framework of they are looking for this to accomplish this, and they're willing to pay this, and then build some sort of offering or portfolio or some sort of showcase around those things. You're already winning half the battle, because then they're going to go here and they're going to see, like Bernie is sending me a portfolio and Bernie, what are you? What's your role? I can't.
Copywriter.
Copywriter, right? So Bernie's a copywriter. Bernie, what do you write about?
That depends on what you'd like me to write about. I can write about anything.
Okay, so I'm a VC right now, and I'm looking for someone that can do a blog from the perspective of the partner in the venture capital firm. And we're really shifting into the space right now of health tech. Okay. So for a fact, you should not be sending me some social media content posts that you have written for your neighbor's veterinary service, right? No matter if that's something you think you did a fantastic job about, right? You may have written the best social media post for your neighbor's veterinary service. Me, as a venture capital partner that needs to think about you in that framework, that would actually really deter me, no matter if you've done a really great job, and even if you have the best references for that. So think about it. Now, it doesn't have to be that in the past you've written a thought leadership blog about health tech for VC. There's many ways that you can connect in that space. Maybe you've written long form content and you can frame it in the space. This is long form content I've done similar to what you're looking for as a thought leadership piece. Maybe you have things that you've written about health. Maybe it wasn't about health tech, but you can say, I'm really well experienced in the health space. Or you can actually, maybe you've never done anything about health, but you've done something about automotive. And you can say, similar to health, the automotive industry is a wide, old school industry. And I'm very familiar with understanding how to break down, big enterprise concepts into digestible words, right? So again, you already know what they're looking for. Think about how you can frame your work, frame yourself, and choose very specifically. Again, less is not more. Less is more. Sorry, less is more. If you go in and you say, I can send Fay 3 fantastic things versus 30 things, your fantastic things are going to get lost in the 30 things. Okay. And sorry, Bernie, I called on you just because you're the one face I see aside from Una and Peter here. But thank you for participating. No, this customization is incredibly important. And again, it doesn't just happen in this world of freelancers. This is a massive thing when it comes to anyone doing direct sales, right? You are all, if you think about it, falling into this world of direct sales. So if you're trying to think also and try to brush up on how you can sell yourself better, do some YouTube deep diving into how to be a good direct salesman. Because literally, if you think about it, you're selling yourself. And these are the most common reasons. Number one is price. Now, you might be able to here and there negotiate on price, but you shouldn't. But the two things you really can impact and you really, really can focus on honing is how are you going to differentiate yourself from all of the other freelancers in the space? And how are you going to make your proposal really, really top quality? And that's just, again, Folio, that's what we're focusing on specifically with what we're building, is making it easier for you to differentiate yourself and for you to really build a quality proposal. Now, again, quality doesn't always necessarily mean incredibly beautifully designed. Quality can go down into the element of saying it's quality because my work is quality and because I'm telling you and showing you exactly what you want. Now, let's dive into the golden rules. So we talked a lot about like great pains, here's the red flags, but like, how do you actually practically do it, right? There's probably going to be a lot of questions, and I'm going to go into real quick the chat and see some of these. Actually, you know what? We'll save the questions for after, and I guess, Peter, you'll go through those and you'll throw those at me after. Okay, awesome. So, looking at all those red flags, when you're looking at kind of these golden rules, we're going to break it down into kind of 4 golden rules. Number one, make it relevant, make it easy for the person that's receiving your portfolio or your pitch. So AKA the hiring managers of the world, make it easy for them, make them feel it and make them believe it. And if you think about these 4 things, when you're building your proposals, your portfolio, relevant, easy, feel, and believe, you'll be able to build something that is really quite a lot more effective than what you think, or what you have right now. So make it relevant. I want to just kind of open this up real quick in general of like, what do you think these you all know these logos, what do they have in common? Let's toss some things into maybe the chat. Other than being like billion-dollar, bajillion-dollar companies and SaaS products, like what is the commonality between them? Swipeable, okay. Let's see some other fun stuff. Just Peter. Anyone else? Okay, we don't need to type it in if there's too much. Participatory, awesome. Peter and Una, great job. Build communities, cool. Easily recognizable. Mobile.
If you don't like it, after 10 seconds, you're gone, or 5 seconds, you're gone.
Yeah, that's true. And there's a lot of things that make them great, but what makes people coming back to them? And I'll maybe speak for myself, but what makes people become almost addicted to TikTok is that when you open up TikTok, Peter, when you open up TikTok, it looks very different than when Una opens up TikTok. And when Bernie opens up TikTok, their For You page looks very different than Kieran when he opens up his TikTok, right? Same thing with Spotify. Spotify jumped to the top because of that personalization. Exactly, Bernie. Jumped to the top because of those For You playlists. The Discover Weekly that was built for you, right? You open up your Discover Weekly on Spotify and you're like, how do they know? Or you're like, oh, they don't know me at all. And you're annoyed at it because you expect them to know you. Same thing with Instagram. And Instagram did that, even after TikTok did it, they realized like when you're going to the reels, when you're going to the discovery page on Instagram, they're reels that like are things that they creepily sometimes know that you're going through things before you even know about it. They're like, oh, we're going to send you sad breakup videos because it seems like you're having a tough time, and it's like, oh shit, they really understand who what you're trying to see and what you're trying to engage with. And I think that's a learning. The companies that do well, the companies that succeed are ones that are personalizing it for their viewers, that are allowing the viewers to see things they care about. If they can do it, you can do it. They've got trillions of songs and pieces of content. You've got maybe 100 max if you're like a superstar, about 30, customize it. And think about it. The playlist that they're building, they're not building you a playlist of the 300 top songs you might like. Your Discover Weekly has like 20 songs, maybe. Right? So that's also that narrowing it down and saying, here's the things that you would really care about, right? Spotify could have easily built a playlist for your Discover Weekly that had like all of the genres that you really, really liked and mush it all together. And here's like the top 200 something of them, but they didn't. They're tightening and tightening and tightening and tightening. So you feel that they actually really know you and engage with you. And keep that in mind. Now, when we're looking and we're actually understanding like what is the real important things for hiring managers to specifically see, the top one is, again, tailored to the open position that they're hiring for. Then skill sets that you're listing your skill sets, you've got tailored cover letters and that they're addressed to that specific hiring manager. All of this is very, very much about personalization and customizing it for them. Customizing it for the people that are hiring you. And it's hard. I know it's hard, but again, good old Billy here, who's giving us some insight. She said, if I'm looking for cybersecurity content writer and they're sending me consumer articles, what is the point? And the only reason I'm including these quotes is really to show you that this is like not me making these things up. These are really people that are sitting here and talking to me about these pains. And so how do we do that, right? How do we go ahead and make sure that we're trying to customize it? There's quite a few ways for you to do it. Number one is choose your samples very carefully. What are the samples that you're including? What are you going to include? You shouldn't just have a general portfolio. Or proposal. You should have it based on however you want to break down your niche. If you do multiple niches, if you do multiple types of forms, if you do multiple types of categories, if you're coding, if you're a developer and you code in multiple different languages, figure out which samples make sense for you to show to that specific person. Customize the damn cover letter, right? If you're writing, and it doesn't have to be a real long cover letter, it could be that first sentence, like, hey, it was really great speaking to you, and repeat what their request is back to them. I understand that you're looking for a thought leadership writer in the crypto space and venture capital, and I think I'm just the fit. Here's why, right? Because again, when you're repeating what it is to them, they're already having that soft spot of recognizing that you recognize them, that you recognize the things they need, and they're already coming into you. We already have like plus points in their book because they're like, oh, they really do get me. They listen to me. They listen to the things I'm asking for. Design. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to have a crazy wild design at all. In fact, you should probably be minimalist in your design and let your actual work be the same and your work should be the showcase. But you should definitely think about it. If you are pitching to, again, like a fintech company, it shouldn't feel like the playground down the block. But if you're trying to close a deal and try to do something for the local church, it definitely should feel a lot different than if you would try to pitch Coca-Cola, because there's more of a community, there's more of a concept. So think about who you're doing and make the feel and the tone and the brand of your portfolio focused on that type of audience. Now, again, it's easier said than done right now with the current tools out there. But if you join Folio's waiting list, it'll be a lot easier for you to do all these customizations, because this is really what makes a difference. And then references. Again, think about what logos you're going to be put, because sometimes logos can be actually deterrent. You might have done really great work for Coca-Cola and Nike. If I'm an early stage pre-seed startup and I see you have Coca-Cola and Nike out there, I'll be like, oh, wait, their prices are way too much. I might even be turned off by the fact that you've done stuff for Coca-Cola and Nike. I would way more prefer see early stage startups that are very similar in my mind to me and my needs than it would the other one. So think again, put yourself in the frame of who am I trying to close a deal with? Who am I pitching? And then build for that specific person. Make it easy.
Apple has made famous sweating the details. You'd think that sweating details would be something that all businesses do, but I would submit that most are bad at it. Jobs famously was very concerned about the makeup of the screws on the inside of the original Macintosh, which sort of built his reputation that, well, why in the world would you care about what the screws were like on the inside that nobody was going to see? But we've come to understand that if you obsess over details like that, that leads to excellence. I like to recount the story of a package design room on the Apple campus where in the early days of the iPod, before the iPod was released, a package design engineer spent a great deal of time with hundreds of prototype boxes, making sure that the little piece of adhesive tape that closes the box was put in just the right place. And this person would open and close and open and close and open and close over a period of weeks. Now, this sounds like strange behavior or something that might seem like a detail that you could maybe let slide a little bit, unless anybody in the room in recent memory has purchased an iPhone or an iPad or an iPod, and you can remember what it felt like to open that little piece of adhesive tape and open the box, and you saw your device placed there neatly stacked on top of the literature, and you took your device out and it lifted out because there's a little spring in there, and you held it in your hand, and you felt like a better person for it. And you understand the attention to detail at Apple for something as mundane as a box and the adhesive tape that closes it.
And what I really gained from that was really just the fact that that first moment of making it pleasant and easy and beautiful experience, not necessarily beautiful visually, but beautiful experience for the person that's trying to hire you is such a huge deal. It's what makes the difference between Apple and and I guess Motorola, right? I'm sorry. You know, like that's the difference, and that's why one succeeds. Now, how do we make it easy? Few things: colors, fonts, navigation, organization. Think about these things. How are they navigating? Are my fonts? Don't use cursive. Like if you do want to use cursive fonts, fine, maybe one title here and there. Nobody likes reading script or cursive writing if they're trying to go through an entire portfolio. Colors, make it easy to read both on a phone and on a laptop in light and dark mode. Test it around. Don't do high contrasty colors in the sense of like, you don't know where people are going to be looking at this portfolio. They don't know, you don't know where they're going to be seeing it. So keep that in mind. And organization. Don't just have a bunch of random stuff. Think about how you're going to be building, again, that story. Make me feel it. And we're running out. I know, Peter, we're running out of time. So I'm going to rush through some of these other, we're okay? Okay. Tell me and make me feel this.
In 2009, a man, a journalist by the name Rob Walker, wanted to find out, is storytelling really the most powerful tool of all? And in order to do this, he went on his computer and he bought 200 objects from eBay. And the average price of the objects were about $1. He then called 200 authors and he asked them, hey, would you like to be part of the significant object study? Which means that I would like you to write a story to one of the objects. And 200 authors said yes. So there he had 200 objects, he had 200 stories, and I assume that it was with nail-biting anticipation that he went on eBay again with all the 200 objects. Would there be a difference? Would there be a change? Do you think there was a change? One of the objects was this beautiful horse's head. There we go. The beautiful horse's head. Now, this beautiful horse's head was bought for 99 cents and was sold when a story was added for $62.95. That is a slight increase of 6,395%. So was this a one-off situation? Not really, because he bought the 200 objects for a total of $129, selling them for $8,000. Now that's insane. But you know what's even more intellectually challenging to understand is how can you and I go to the movies and pay good money to watch movies like James Bond, who are absolutely unrealistic. And we sit there, we enjoy the movie, and some of us, we really enjoy the movie. And we leave the theater going like, God, what a man. I would like to be more like him. I'd like to walk like him. I'd like to talk like him. I like Bond. Wonder how I could be more like Bond. And then this weird revelation hits you like from nowhere, and you come up with a brilliant idea to walk to a watchmaker shop. And wow, it just happens to be an Omega watch in that shop that resembles the one that Bond was wearing in the movie. And you pay $10,000 to put that watch on your wrist, and you leave that store feeling more like Bond.
And that's kind of our goal, right? When you're trying to think about how can you tell your story? How can you go ahead and make and sell yourself, again, sell yourself, not just like the horse's head for 99 cents, but the horse's head for 60-something dollars. You need to go in and you can say, how can I build this into a narrative? And how can I build it onto a story? How can I show this? And one of the ways to do it is to not just screenshot, but to actually show it live in the experience, right? Whether if you're designing an app, if you're writing copywriting, screenshot it, but also if you can have those links, plug that in and have that there. But even more so, drill down into the stories of who did you work for? What industries were you focused on? Which department even within that industry you're involved in, right? Because if you don't have those things to screenshot and share, if they're private, if you lost them, if there are things that you don't have any proof points, you can sell it based on, again, and what we learned from that horse's head, sometimes it doesn't even matter what the item is or when you what it looks like when you look at it. If you tell the story and you build a narrative and you say, I actually, when we had to go in and do this thought leadership for the crypto space in the VC firm, we sat for the first 20 to 40 minutes sitting there and understanding what was the tone of the VC. We then went to the important points of who their audience was. I then sent a draft, right? Talk about the processes and the stories that you, and how that actually came about. And think about it when it comes to the general story structure, right? That gentleman in the TED Talk had gone through Bond. And what's really great about storytelling, and this is something I think, Una, you had mentioned that you guys have a storytelling event coming up. So I highly encourage folks to really hone in on this, because it's not just about if you're a storyteller in general, but it's also very much so about you selling yourself. Storytelling is selling. Is understand the context, right? What is the context of this item that you're showing them? What is the circumstance that has changed that previous client needed something more? What are some of the obstacles you faced when building that result for that client? What are the changes? What are the results that came from that? And what are the consequences? What happened after that? Think about how you're going to build your story in these three things. You can even narrow it down even to even simpler, is like, what did they want? How did I solve it? What was the result? Make me believe. Now, we don't need to go through it all, but you need to make somebody believe in it. If you say it with enough confidence, you obviously can get the job done. But when you're in the room, and again, that's the problem with portfolios, is you need to show proof of work. Don't be like Helen. Show that you can actually do the job and have proof points of you actually being able to do that. And how do you do that? By having references, metrics, and explaining the processes that you might have gone through in order to accomplish previous clients' work. Again, if you can show the references, great. If you can add metrics on top of that, even better. If you can show the processes, amazing. If you can't do all of them, choose one and figure out how to do that effectively. Now, the reason is because when you're including your case studies and testimonials, it increases your chances of closing that deal by 73%. That's a lot. And again, going back to the making it relevant, is that need to then think about how are you going to make those testimonials relevant to the person that you're closing that deal with, or trying to get to hire you. And when they're speaking about, again, going back to this hiring manager perspective, when they're asking about how important it is to showcase a process specifically, out on a scale of 0 to 10, almost half of the managers and almost half of the people that were asked said about 8 and higher, meaning it is very, very, very important for you to show the process. And this is even more important when you're talking about something that doesn't have your name on it, when you're ghostwriting something, when you don't have proof points, when the file got lost in some crazy wipeout of some sort of tech problem, right? You need to talk about the processes. And that's something that where you can redeem yourself, right? If you're designing amazing, amazing decks for somebody and you just don't have access to them, talk about your process of how to build an effective deck. What are some of the questions you asked? What are some of the things you've done in order to accomplish that? And then maybe build 3 sample slides, not the full deck, because no one's going to look through a full deck. Build 3 sample slides and then dive into the process. And if you can, show some of the names of the clients, not only because you're showing proof points, but even more so, it might close a deal. This hiring manager saw one of the clients of that company on the portfolio of the freelancer that they wanted to hire. So they know, oh, they've already done work for that person. They're the type of client that we have. So they obviously know our market. We've gone through all of these great things, make or break, red flags, golden rules. I hope that some of this was really helpful for you. I'd be happy to give you free feedback on your existing portfolios. Unfortunately, Folio is not yet open for you to have access to it. We are looking for beta testers for it. So if you're interested in being a beta tester, basically giving us feedback, because we want to launch something that's really, really helpful and it's actually really, really relevant. So if you're interested, you can head to Folio.build, sign up for the waiting list. I'll be in touch with you about what that would look like to be a beta tester and to have access to it once we're ready to kind of click on launch. Add me on LinkedIn, and again, feel free to send me your samples or send me your portfolios or your proposals that you've done, and I'd be happy to kind of go through those and give you some feedback on them. So yeah.